Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie, and welcome back to another Premier League DraftKings Soccer Slate preview. Sorry for no videos for Champions League. I was actually in Austin, Texas to see the eclipse and just chill with some friends. So just didn't get around to making videos, but I'm back here for the Premier League, and we've got a kind of interesting slate here. It's a Man City slate. They're playing Luton. Like this is as much of a Man City slate as any Man City has ever been because they should just smash them. They have almost every time they played them. In terms of the other games, you got Brentford minus 200. They're probably the team to go if you're not going City, which could be a mistake, but we shall see. For GPP, it's definitely an option. We got Burnley, Brighton, and Forest Wolves. In terms of projected lineups and set pieces for Brentford, in this team, it should be an Mbuemo Jensen split. Reguilon's taken the past. Last game was the first time Mbuemo and Reguilon has played together, and we saw Mbuemo have priority. For Sheffield United, it's a Hammer Osborne split now. Hammer used to take everything. Now they've kind of gotten into a habit of splitting. We've seen McAtee split, we've seen Osborne split, but there's always a split, and they'll always have a lefty option now with Hammer. For Burnley and Brighton, for Burnley, Brune Larson, everything now. Like he's kind of locked down a starting role, which is kind of interesting considering he barely played at the beginning of the season. For Brighton, gross monopoly. Although we could see a Stupinian maybe take a pinch, but it's unlikely, I'd say, these days. Man City Luton. If it's this lineup, probably De Bruyne everything. I know Foden's got a knock, but if he's in, he potentially could split. If Bernardo Silva's in, he could potentially split. If there's no De Bruyne, it should be Alvarez. Since I know De Bruyne was dealing with like some illness issue that kept him out of the Champions League. So we'll see if he's good to go here. The interesting about this team is it's kind of a pretty rotated Man City lineup. No Rodri, which for the first time I think like ever, when he's healthy, he's usually in. So that's a little strange. And all these attackers, like this whole four line, none of them played or none of them started at least in UCL. And that's the other thing to think about. Like they could be a little bit of sub risk for any of these guys just because they're gonna have their eye on the Champions League. I'm hoping though, if it's this lineup, they'll just kind of let them play, especially if they're already up a couple of goals. They'll save like their big guns, like a Bernardo, like Rodri, like Foden, for the Champions League in a couple of days after this. So those are my thoughts there. For Luton, Doughty, mostly Monopoly. We could see Barkley maybe take a little something, but they're probably not going to have that many sets regardless, considering they're playing Man City. Forest, Gibbs White Monopoly. For Wolves, Sarabia Monopoly. We could see Tommy Doyle in though, and he maybe split, maybe not. Eight Nori's continuing to play super advanced up the pitch, which makes him interesting as an attacker in a defender eligible spot. But yeah, those are my thoughts there. All right. In terms of prices, Foden's the most. Hopefully he doesn't play. I'm scared of him being a sub risk even if he does start. So those are the worries with him. Now, Gross, he's going to get overlooked here, considering most people, in cash especially, are just going to stack Man City. And I don't know if they're wrong. Like, Man City probably, because they scored 6 goals or something last time they played Luton. Holland had like 4 of them. It's like, in cash, people are just going to do this. Gross, Holland, and then probably another City attacker. I think Alvarez for 7,400 is crazy. Like, everyone's just going to probably start like that in cash. That makes everything else kind of a differential for GPP. Like your Gross, like your Cunha, like your Mbuemo. But I feel like it's just a little much. I don't know why he's this expensive considering he's had one game back. And granted, he dropped 20, but he's more than Holland, which is kind of outrageous. But that probably means he gets pretty low owned. Tony, 9,200. He's been a little off the boil. Only played 9 minutes against Villa, apparently. Did was that? I guess he played nine minutes only. But like He's been kind of hit or miss. Yeah, it was a lot hotter when he was first coming back from his suspension, but now he's kind of cooled down a little bit. But for GPP's a differential, I could definitely get behind really any of these Brentford guys. Everyone else, like 9,100 for Gibbs White feels a little expensive to me. But any of these guys are kind of in play just as Man City alternatives. Although for cash, like I'm just probably not making to think of any of them and just go Holland Alvarez. And I think that's what most of the field does too there. Bernardo, if he plays, I saw someone say something really interesting that he's kind of the guy that you want for big games, and then for kind of like the Lutons or whatever, he doesn't do as well. I think it's pretty clear to see. Like 15 against Man United, didn't do great against Liverpool, but 7 against Arsenal. He had pretty good against Bournemouth and Brentford, to be fair. But then he had like 3 versus Brentford here. He's actually been pretty solid. Like I kind of want to take that back a little bit, but I just see him as more of a big game player than a small game player for whatever reason. I feel like Pep is more creative with his usage of him against big teams, whereas the smaller clubs, I think he probably uses him more sparingly because he plays more attackers against those smaller teams. It pushes Bernardo back. Like, for example, you'd see him, I know it's not correct right now, but you'd see him almost as like in one of Rico or Kovacic's roles because they're going to cram a ton of attackers to try to score a ton of goals. That's what they typically do against those smaller teams. Whereas in the bigger games, you'll see him put like there'll be no Doku, no Ba, it'll be Bernardo on the wing, more attacking wise, since he tries to do something a little bit different in those big games. Everyone else here, like I said before, for cash, you're just going to go Man City. For GPP, kind of really everyone's probably going to be under-owned, you could argue. Like Origi 5K is super cheap. Vile Foss 3,900 is super, super cheap. But yeah, like it just comes down to picking Man City. There's some expensive alternatives, but for cash, you're just gonna go Holland Alvarez, almost certainly, I feel like. Midfield, there's De Bruyne. It's gross. De Bruyne, I'm probably plugging him for everything. Like he's been super solid. He's been finally priced up to what he probably should be. That's probably a fair price, but this is just the matchup for him. He didn't play in the UCL, which makes me think that they give him a little bit more time for this game. However, he does carry a little bit of sub risk, which is the argument to fade him in GPP. But for cash, you just plug him. Sarabia, man, this is a little expensive for him. He's been pretty good, but I just don't love him for that much. Grealish is just another Man City option. Same with Rodri, although I think he's a little much here for his usual role. Jensen, 6,400. That's a pretty good play. Splitting set pieces, they're going to dominate Sheffield, I'd gather. He's been going 90 pretty often lately. So I think Jensen's a good play here for 6K. Hammer, I don't think this is. You know what? It's not that bad of a play. I could get behind a Hammer. I wish he was a little bit more cheap, but 5,700 is probably fair. Oscar Bob. Now, I played him against Crystal Palace. He was not good, but playing Luton, that's an even better matchup. He's just another potential Man City ceiling for super cheap. I really like Bob here. I think that's a good play if he's in. Everyone else is kind of whatever. I'm staying away from Luton because of the matchup. Nunez, if he's in, he could potentially play for sure. That's another guy. Like I'm not afraid to go. Really, any city is all right, no matter who they are, especially for cheap. Something like Mika Hamilton if he plays by some miracle. Ben Osborne, that's not bad for super cheap. He's been solid when starting. Gets a decent amount of floor for 3,800. That's pretty good. I like that a lot. I think it's better than Hammer because he's 2K cheaper. Adam Milana, I never mind. He never really does anything, but he's an attacker on a good team. So just exposure to Brighton here. I know he gets subbed like max 60th minute is late or as late as 60th minute, but like I don't know. I just always end up having a share. 3K is just always worth the punt, in my opinion. And everyone else I'm kind of met on. The pick of the bunch here for value really is Osborne. And then there's some really nice mid-range options like Nunez and Oscar Bob. And of course, De Bruyne is the main guy. Defenders, I'm probably paying down here. Estupiñán's definitely the best pay up. I just think that you're going to prioritize the attackers here because there's some really good options. And I don't think there's a huge gap between most of the defenders, especially when there's Man City. Like their attacker or defenders are really never like that productive in terms of floor. However, Rico Lewis is the option that I think is the best option, in my opinion. He plays pretty attacking when he's in this midfield role. Like he'll get up there. He scored a goal last game. He's been super, super solid when starting. So I'm probably just going to plug Rico Lewis. He might even be worthy. Everyone else is kind of whatever. Like the two standouts here are Rico and Estupiñán, and Rico I think is the best one. Everyone else is kind of whatever. Gavardio I usually like, but I think he's gotten a little expensive now. I'm just John Stones. He's another guy who get pretty far forward from his hybrid defensive midfielder role. 4K is not bad. You've seen like under 3K a lot, and that's where I'm really in love with him. But Stones and DFS are the two cheapest City guys. Like, there's never any reason not to just go them. They're a little expensive though, so I don't mind a punt going all the way down. I'd love a Valentin Barco played. I beg they give him a chance, but it's just not happening. What else is just a punt, really? Like Felipe is not bad. I try to go like a minus favorite, like a Brentford defender would be really nice for cheap. Little much for 3K, but if I get someone under this, let me see if there's anyone. I'm not seeing anyone, but like a Felipe. Anyone who just fits the rest of the team, I feel like is fine. This is when you're not going Rico or Estupiñán. Goalie, crapshoot as always. Winner could come from anywhere. Like really, any of these guys can win it. In terms of a core, I think I'm putting Rico Lewis in my core, honestly. I was going to go Alvarez, Holland, De Bruyne, but I think now I lean De Bruyne, Rico, Holland. Although I could very much foresee just going all four and just stacking Man City because I think that's going to be a popular route and probably not wrong to do so. But yeah, Man City roulette. Not a ton to really break down. I think for cash especially, it just comes down to just picking City correctly. For GPP, definitely can get a little bit different. I really like Brentford's differential. I like Brighton is a not bad differential. But it might just come down to just getting a City stack correctly anyway. We'll see how it goes. I'm pretty excited. Good luck, guys, and make sure to check out the website, the Discord, the other FSI YouTube channels. Don't forget to subscribe, and those are all my plugs. So good luck, guys. Peace.